Hey sweet friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maylene Call from Mrs. Call's Campers. I'm going to be doing another nail video with you guys today. I have absolutely loved dipping my nails lately, so we're going to hop right in. This is a YouTube premiere, which means if you're watching when this video comes out and when it goes live, we're actually watching it at the same time, and there is a chat right over here that I'm in right now, so I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Also, I just wanted to remind you, if you follow me on Instagram, I have something special going on for you right now during the live premiere. If you're watching this video sometime in the future and weren't able to make it to the live, make sure you're subscribed and you have that bell notification on because it'll notify you when I post new videos. Again, if you are a beginner to dipping your nails, I did do a complete beginner's tutorial that tells you everything you need to get started and my best tips for getting started. It's an in-depth tutorial and that will be right up here for you. Please keep in mind, as you are watching this, I am not a professional. I am just someone who likes to do their nails at home, and I want to help you be comfortable doing your nails at home too. So I have the link in the description box for the brand I use. I have the link for all the supplies I use, and that's a really awesome way to support me too by using those links. So thank you so much. The way I'm setting this video up, we're gonna hop into a quick 5-minute tutorial that is just going to be exactly how I dip my nails. So it's gonna be a super quick step-by-step in case that's exactly what you need. And then we're gonna get into the full tutorial. I'm gonna show you how I remove my nails, I'm gonna show you how I prep my nails, and then we're gonna do a whole hand together. Keep in mind, I will have timestamps linked in the comment section for you guys so you can jump to whatever part you need. I just thought it would be kind of helpful to have a really quick tutorial in the beginning that's very concise and that will help you if you just need something to refer back to. So that's what that's there for. So we're gonna hop into that. So the first thing we're starting off with is isopropyl alcohol. This is just to dehydrate our nail. Keep in mind, we've already done nail prep and all that. We're using Bliss, and before you use your dip powders, you do kind of want to mix them up, make sure they're good to go. I'm going to be starting with step 1, which is Probase. I'm going to apply a very a thin line on my nail. I'm not going to keep my Probase thick when I do this. You want to make sure your coats are thin. So that's what our first coat looks like. Now we're going to dust off the powder. So for each dip, you just kind of want to put a little bit more Probase on your nail. I'm going a little bit higher and a little bit wider on my second dip. This is called the 3/4 method. It's going to help you build up that apex to your nail, and also it's going to help with lifting. It's going to make sure that your manicure lasts longer. So we're dipping into it again, and then we're going to dust off the powder. Now we're going in for our third dip. A little out of frame, but you can see there how much I put on. And really you're just gonna keep building this up until you get to your entire nail. And when you get to your entire nail, what you're gonna do is run a toothpick along the edges just to clean it up. But for now, we're just repeating the process until we get that full coverage. So apply Probase in thin layers, slowly, but you do want to make sure you dip into the powder as soon as you can. You don't want to wait too long, but you can take your time to make sure you're not touching your skin when you're doing this step. And dip our nail in. And I tap off over the container just to conserve as much powder as possible. So we're brushing off. I'm going in this time with my first full coat, so I'm getting as close as I can to my skin, but trying not to touch it. You can also pull down your skin with your finger a little bit if it helps you. You want to maintain control when you do this. And then we're going to dip into our powder. Taking my time with it. I didn't want to speed past this too much so you could see how I actually do it. And then I'm dipping, and you also want to be gentle when you're dipping. I'm not pushing my finger in really hard or anything. So since I did a full dip, you can see I cleaned it up with a toothpick so that none of it was on my skin. This is gonna make it easier when we file. So this is what she looks like. This is about the coverage I want. Now we're going into step 2, which is our activator. And you just want to apply this all over your nail. It is okay if this gets on your skin, it's not gonna hurt you. Now comes the filing part. I'm using an e-file, you don't have to have one. But this is just helping me kind of smooth out the nail. So this e-file basically just speeds up the process, but there's lots of people out there who just use normal nail files, and it's totally okay. Once you've smoothed her out some, I use this safety bit along my cuticles. It helps me get really close. It also doesn't hurt my skin. You do want to be careful when you use the e-file not to like burn yourself, by spending too much time in one area, but just touching my skin with this e-file doesn't hurt me. I also don't have a super strong one, so I'm just cleaning up around the cuticle area. I wanted to show you this 120 grit. You can also use to kind of help buff your nail, get anything that's imperfect off of your nail. But this buffing block is my lifesaver. I buff with the buffing block for like a long while. Now I'm gonna go into actually shaping the nails. So I'm using the grittier side of my nail file here, and I'm cleaning up the edges of my nail, and I'm also shaping it. I did speed past that because everybody shapes their nails differently. And then I'm buffing again just to make sure it's as smooth as possible. And now, after you wash your hands, you want to do activator step number 2. So we already did one coat, now we're doing our second coat. Then, once it is dry, make sure it is dry. You want to make sure that it is dry, and then go in with a quick top coat. I use Probase step 1 again. I don't use their step. And now I'm doing a slower, more detailed top coat. And that is just to make sure that I get the best finish possible. So Revel does say with their top coat to do a quick coat and then a slow coat, so that's what I do. This is what we end up with, and our manicure is going to be dry in 2 minutes. Now let's talk about removing nails. There are a few different methods. I'm gonna rush through them really quickly. So the first one is peel base. I don't use peel base, but I know one of my friends, Ashley, Lipstick and Littles, loves peel base because she can redo her manicures every week without having to soak her nails in acetone. I personally have never used peel base, but I know a lot of people like it because they can get their practice in, but it does cause your manicure to lift and pop off. That's kind of the point of the peel base, is so that they come off easily. So for me, peel base isn't something that I wanna do because I do want my manicure to last like 2-3 weeks at a time when I do it. But peel base is an option to consider if you're new and you want to get that practice in and you don't want to soak off your nails all the time. The next is these soak off clips. So clips are an option if you wanted to soak a cotton ball in acetone, wrap it in foil, and then clip the little clippy clip on your nail, and then you can kind of move around the house while your acetone is soaking off. For me personally, I don't do either of those two methods. I do something called the rice baggie removal method, which sounds a little silly. The thing I do before I remove my nails is I take my e-file and I use the sanding bit and I take off the dip to like the base layer. So I don't file it down to my nail. I just file it down to like the base layer of dip polish so that the acetone has to do less work to get off, if that makes sense. You do not have to file down your nails, but it definitely is going to speed up the process for you. I use soak off, which is very important. It's different from just acetone. I guess this is stronger. So the soak off removes gel nails, nail polish, artificial nails, nail glue, glitter polish, and more, which includes dip. So this is what I use. To kind of amp this up, I do the rice baggie method, which you are about to see. So for the rice baggie method, I take a bowl and fill it with uncooked rice, and then I microwave it for about a minute or so. And then I take a baggie, I fill it with acetone, and I put this little dish scrubby in the baggie so that while I'm soaking my nails, I can rub my nails against the dish scrubby really gently, and it's gonna help take off your nail polish. The reason that we're warming the rice is so that the acetone in the baggie actually gets warm and helps your polish come off faster. When I did this, it took me 4 minutes to remove my nails because I had that heat with it and I was rubbing my nails with the scrubby. So yes, acetone is not the healthiest for your nails, but I was only soaking for about 4 minutes. If you use the clips, it's gonna take a bit longer because there's no heat involved. And if you use peel off base, you don't have to use acetone. So it's completely up to you what you wanna go for, what's gonna work for you and your lifestyle. I really like how quick the baggie method is, and I can control when my manicure comes off. So that's the only reason I do it that way. address that some people do actually just file down their dip to the base layer and then dip on top of it, but I'm gonna recommend that you don't do that, just so you can make sure that your nails are healthy before your next dip, especially because if your nail is lifting and maybe you don't notice it and water gets trapped underneath there, it can cause fungus and things like that. So I would just recommend removing your nails completely before you do your next set. Now let's talk about prepping our nails. Prepping your nails is really important because it's gonna help your manicure last. It's gonna prevent lifting, and it's gonna make your nails look better. So the one thing I do wanna say is be really, really careful, be really gentle when you are prepping your nails, especially the cuticle area. During this manicure, I was actually a little rough on my cuticles, but you wanna be as gentle as possible. You really don't wanna remove too much skin, and overall just be really, really careful. I pretty much just do the basics whenever I'm prepping my nails, so I definitely use cuticle remover. This is a must if you're doing manicures. You wanna make sure the cuticle is totally off your nail, and then you definitely want something to push your cuticles back with. I do have this tool which is double-ended, and this side especially is super, super helpful because I can actually get in there and very gently take off any dead skin and it doesn't hurt. So I definitely recommend that you at least get cuticle remover before you do your dip nails, because if not, it could cause lifting. Just as a reminder, check the description box for my Amazon link. I have a full list of supplies. Into the actual manicure. So for this manicure, I am using 3 colors. The baby blue is Bliss. The milky white color for my milk nail is Emily. And then the sparkly topper color that I use is Bubbly. So this is the manicure we're gonna be doing today on this hand. I used Bliss, which is this blue color, Emily for the milky white color. Then I topped Bubbly on my middle finger for that sparkle. For the flowers, I just used these flowers from Amazon. I think they were $7 or $8. These are gonna last forever though, so if you check the link in my description box, I'll have those there for you. First thing that I'm gonna do is apply rubbing alcohol to my nails just to dehydrate them. Dehydrating your nails is really, really important because it's gonna keep it from lifting. You don't want any oil or anything on your nails when you're starting your manicure. You also want them to be completely dry before you go in. So these are the dip powders that I'm using. I'm just gonna kind of mix them up, make sure they're good to go. I do want to point out that the first time I did my nails, I did buff my nails just a little bit, but you do not have to do that. So my nails are still growing out from that. That's why they look like that. I am not buffing before I do anything to my nails. It's definitely not necessary. So once again, I am going to be using the 3/4 method, which means I'm not going to be painting my entire nail and dipping my entire nail at one time. We're starting with step 1, which is our Probase from Revel. And I'm gonna make sure that I'm not getting too much liquid on my brush. So I'm just making sure that I kind of wipe it off. And all I'm gonna do is paint just a single stripe down the center of the nail. And then dip, lay, or sprinkle it in. And that's our first nail done. Once again, I'm just going in with a single stripe. I am actually gonna make this one just a little bit bigger because this nail is gonna have so many coats on it since I'm doing the milk bath. Tap off. And you wanna make sure that even these coats are pretty thin. You don't want anything too thick going on your nail. Whether you dip it or lay it, it's more of a personal preference. It is dip powder, so a lot of people dip it, some people sprinkle it, but it's totally up to you. This is my thumb, so I am gonna do just like a bigger area than I normally would. So this is our first layer done. As you can see, I just painted a single strip on all of my nails. After you dip your nails, you're gonna wanna dust off the powder. This is just a makeup brush that I had that I never used, but you could clean a makeup brush that you have really, really well, but it has to be really, really clean. Some people also use a soft toothbrush for this too, but I'm just gonna dust them off really, really well. And now we're gonna go in for our second dip. So this time I'm gonna go a little bit higher and a little bit wider, but I'm still not gonna cover the whole nail. And I'm going slow. After you touch your Probase to powder, what you should do is wipe off your brush before putting it back. That's best practice. But I don't do that, so don't listen to me. So I'm just going a little bit wider, a little bit higher on my nail. And again, this is the nail that's gonna have more layers, so I'm kind of covering this one a little bit more just because I don't want this one to get too thick. I'm going slow whenever I do this just to make sure that the Probase, which is this liquid, isn't skipping over the powder. I'm making sure I'm actually coating the whole nail. And if you go slow, you can make sure that that happens. Whenever I do my thumb, since it's a bigger area, I do usually leave more product on the brush just so I can spread it a bit easier. But I still try to thin out the Probase as much as possible so there's not too much product on there. And with this, you don't have to work lightning quick, but you do have to work quick enough because the Probase, this liquid, will start to dry. And then when you dip it, it can get funky. So you kind of want to paint and then immediately dip, but you do have some time to work with. So here's what we have after our second dip. I am going to brush off my nails so you can see it a little bit better. Also the bottom, it gets kind of annoying to have on your fingers. So this is what my nails look like after 2 dips. And the great thing about dipping your nails is, at this point I did kind of smudge it just now, but for the most part you can touch it, you can do stuff with it. So yeah, don't be worried if you smudge your nail or mess it up. We're gonna be able to fix that in the end. It's not gonna be a big deal at all. I am gonna try to smush it down a little bit. Okay, now we're going in for coat 3, and as you can tell, my pinky, it's such a small nail that I am pretty much ready to go to the full edge on it. And I probably will go to the full edge on this nail to keep it from getting too thick. So we're just kind of gonna see where it goes. So when I get near my cuticle, I'm just gonna push the brush up. I'm not gonna touch the cuticle directly if I can help it. Sometimes it's really hard. I'm working really far away from my nails, so it's a bit harder for me to see. But you never wanna touch the cuticle directly. Whenever you do your first full dip, that's when you want to take a toothpick and kind of go along the sides and scrape off anything that might be touching your skin. And for me, it helps if you lay your your toothpick against your skin. So I'm pushing up to my cuticle, and I'm also trying to make sure no liquid just kind of pools near the cuticle. I'm making sure I get the corners of my nail too. If you miss the corners, that can cause lifting. So I'm just trying to cover the whole nail. Oops, I kind of scraped the nail there, but that's okay. And I'm just going as slow as I can to make sure that I'm covering the nail, but at the same time I'm not getting it on my skin as much as I can help it. And I find that dipping your nail directly into it like this makes it more likely to give you like waves in your nail, if that makes sense. So that's why a lot of times I do just like to lay it in flat, but it's really hard with the angle that I'm filming on. So now we're just going to scrape off anything that might be touching the skin, especially on the edges over here. The cuticle looks pretty good. So I'm kind of starting in the middle and then once again just pushing up, and then I try to get the edges really well. I did get a little bit too much product, so I'm just trying to thin it out. The Probase, which is this step 1, the liquid that I'm using right now, this is one that you definitely do not want to get on your skin. It's not going to hurt your skin to get it on there, but it'll make it really, really sticky. It's kind of annoying to get off. So I would just recommend trying as hard as you can not to get this first liquid on your hands. Also, you don't want to dip your nail into the powder with the Probase on your skin, because then the powder will be on your skin and it's kind of annoying to get off. So I am using a gentle pressure, just kind of enough to scrape anything that's where I don't want it to be. Kind of running along where my nail meets my skin and making sure that's nice and separate. So this is dip number 3. I can kind of fix most of this that you see when I go to file. I'm gonna dust it off. Using a pretty good pressure when I'm doing this. So once again, this is 3 coats. So at this point, I'm gonna do 1 more full coat on each nail. And again, I'm working with my Probase in pretty thin layers. You don't want to apply it on too thick. That's what causes your nails to get thick, which is not what we want. So I am going for completely full coverage at this point. I did full coverage on the last nail too. And this one especially, I'm gonna be really thin with because, hold on, there's a hair. You don't want to get any hairs. This finger especially, I'm trying to be really thin with my coats because it is going to get more coats than the other nails because I'm doing the milk bath style. So we're almost ready for that. I really do prefer laying my finger as opposed to dipping into it. I also forgot to do this on this nail. It's kind of already hardened. That's okay, we did a pretty good job. The angle that I'm doing this is kind of difficult because I'm trying to film and get that on a good angle, so I feel like I could do a better job if I wasn't filming. And again, you want to stay away from your cuticle when you do this. That's one of the biggest tips that we see in the Revel customer community group, is people basically just paint their cuticles. So you want to be really, really careful. Just taking a toothpick, kind of just cut myself. That's okay. Any sort of imperfections that you see on the nail, we're gonna be able to buff away and fix later, so don't stress about them too much. I think that nail has a little bit too much Probase on it, but that's okay. You can see there's kind of like a ridge or a bump because I had a little bit too much Probase on that nail. But like I said, we can fix most of that. This is what our fourth coat looks like. At this point, I'm gonna work on my accent nails right here. So I'm going to apply the flowers. I'm also going to apply Bubbly, which is a sparkly color. And I realize now that my hair knocked over the flowers that I had. I need to actually get some more flowers out because I kind of lost all the other ones that I had set out. So I only use a couple of these flowers whenever I do this milk bath manicure. So these are gonna last forever. Have a nice little variety in there. So for the milk bath nail, the first thing I'm gonna do is apply the larger flowers. So I'm just gonna put a dot of Probase exactly where I want that flower, just to make it easier on myself. If I can grab it. Okay, and I kind of want that one on the side right here. And now I'm gonna take this piece of plastic and push down on that flower and just press it into my nail. So now it's nice and flat. And I'm just going to apply the rest of the flowers. So sometimes I apply them in sections like this, and sometimes I apply Probase to the entire nail. Oops, I didn't want that one there. So it just kind of depends on what you want to do. But I feel like working in sections is a lot more peaceful than painting the entire nail and trying to get them all on there. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. And I'm also trying to use a mix of whole flowers, broken flowers, and stems, just so it looks a bit more natural. And it's okay if the surface of this gets a little messed up, because like I said, we are gonna buff it and fix it. I'm gonna get the last little bit on there. Maybe do another blue. Another stem. I'm putting a lot more flowers than I did on my last one. I feel like I didn't put enough on my last one, and I like to have a lot of flowers. So press them on there. Okay, now all of our flowers have been applied. And the next thing we're gonna do is one more dip of Emily just to kind of cover the flowers a little bit. Again, I'm gonna take my toothpick and clean up the edges as best I can. Okay, next we are going to apply Bubbly to our middle finger for some sparkle. So this shade is Bubbly. This is just gonna give us some sparkle. She's really pretty on her own, but I like to top pretty much any color with Bubbly. Now that I have both of my designs done, the next step is just going to be to dip them both in clear. Dipping in clear isn't necessary on just your normal nail, but if you do a design, it's better to protect it with clear. So at this point, I have dipped my nails, I've done my designs, and I've dipped these two nails in clear. But what I actually think I'm gonna do is do one more dip on my thumb just to get a little bit better coverage, and then we're gonna move on to the next step. I also missed a little bit on my pinky, so I am gonna go back and do another dip right there. I missed my pinky because it's really hard to see. Also, I don't think I dusted that off, which is probably not good. Yeah, I definitely need to go ahead and dip my thumb one more time. The thing is, when you're dipping your nails, you have a lot of flexibility in there. I keep saying that over and over, but you can pretty much do whatever you want. So this nail definitely needs more coverage. So these are looking quite rough right now. The next step is going to be to activate them so that this hardens, and then we can file and make them pretty. So to activate, we are going to use step 2, and we're going to apply this on all 5 nails generously. Here is our first coat of activator. I feel like Bliss for me, didn't apply as smooth as other dips did. I feel like she was a little bit more chunky to work with, but like I said, that's totally okay. Nothing we can't fix, and really not a big deal at all. So you wanna let the activator sit on your nails for at least like 2 minutes, just so it really hardens before you go in and file. I'm going to be using an e-file. This is a pretty gritty bit that I'm working with, especially for this milk bath nail where I need to get off quite a bit to make it smooth and pretty. Again, you can just use a normal nail file. You can use the grittier side to take off more dip and smooth it out more, and then you can use the less gritty side to make it smooth. These buffing blocks are absolutely essential when you do your nails to make sure they get really smooth. So our nails are about ready, and I'm gonna go ahead and start e-filing. This e-file isn't necessarily going to hurt me. I don't have a super professional one. I also don't have it on too high a speed, so I can touch my skin with it. I am going to speed past this part just for the sake of time, but the amount of filing and buffing that you're going to need depends on how you applied your dip powder. If you applied really thick or if your application was a bit messy, you're gonna have to file more. Just be really patient with the process. Also, for people who are new to e-filing, the drill obviously moves really quickly and that generates heat. So when you're working with it on your nails, try to work with the e-file touching your nails for a short period of time. Otherwise, the heat will build up and your nails will start to feel uncomfortably hot. E-files aren't hard to use, but they do take some time to feel comfortable with. So play around with different hand positions and file in whatever way feels comfortable to you. You can also file them in any direction that you want. I do recommend an e-file, but again, it isn't necessary. I am kind of filing to kind of flatten the ridge that kind of happens when you do a lot of layers or thick layers of dip. So I've got this angled towards my cuticle. Also, you are gonna have a prettier milk bath if you leave your nails more unbuffed like this, but I like to see the flowers just a little bit more. I think that's one of my biggest tips is to angle this when you do it to where it kind of helps your nail look like it's coming from your natural nail as opposed to just a ridge from dip. I've smoothed them out a majority of the way at this point. Now I'm gonna go in with my safety bit, and this is just gonna help me work around the cuticles a little better. I'm also going to go under my nail. So dip kind of builds up sometimes in the corners, like underneath it. So I'm just gonna work that out. And that'll help with lifting too. And this tip is really great for getting off all the little bits. Also, another important thing when you are in the filing stage is pulling your skin away from your nail so that you can make sure nothing is touching and really filing that area. So I'm just gonna wipe off my hands so I can kind of see what I'm working with a little bit better. This is a damp washcloth, which a lot of times I like to do all my filing and buffing over so it doesn't make a mess, but the washcloth was not very pretty to look at. So this is what our nails look like currently. They are almost done. We still have a little bit more filing to do. So I'm gonna take the grittier side of this file and work my milk bath file a little bit more. And then for the rest of them, I'm gonna use a finer grit. I just really want the milk bath nail to be pretty smooth, and I just cut myself, that's okay. At this point, I am going to use the tougher, rougher grit on my nail file to do the shaping of my nails and kind of go around the edges and make sure all the edges look really good and smooth for a good final product and to prevent lifting. So I kind of buffed off some of these flowers. That's totally okay. I'm just gonna go ahead, add more Probase, stick a couple of flowers back on, then activate again, and probably dip in clear too to help it. Now we are going to move on to our second coat of activator. Again, you want to apply this all over your entire nail. And then we're gonna let it sit for another minute or two before we dry them off completely. You wanna make sure your nails are completely dry before you move on to the final step. Now we are moving on to our top coat. I am using the same liquid as in step 1 for my top coat. So what we're gonna do is apply our top coat in really thin, quick strokes. Again, I'm using the step 1 liquid here, and I'm just painting really quick strokes over each nail. I'm not taking my time. I'm not trying to cover every bit of it. Then immediately after is when we're gonna go in for our slower, more detailed coat. And this time I'm making sure I get the entire nail, I'm covering all of it, I'm going really slow, and I'm capping the ends, which means I'm just putting polish on the edge of my nail. I'm following the exact same steps as you would with Revel's top coat. I'm just using step 1. So sometimes people have issues with their top coat looking matte or streaky or just kind of funky. So if you use step 1, this will solve all of your problems. After you apply your top coat, all you need to do is wait 2 minutes. Your manicure will be completely dry, ready to go, and do not forget to apply cuticle oil.
Alright, thank you so much for watching. I know the video was long, but I just want to make you guys as comfortable as possible with the process. I promise you are going to do great. It is easy. Anybody can do it. Just make sure that you stay away from your cuticles, stay away from your skin, and buff, buff, buff. Say it with me. Buff, buff, buff. Buff, buff, buff. That is going to be the biggest tip I have for you guys to get your manicure looking good. Take your time buffing. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. It was a lot of work to put together, but I feel like it was worth it. Thank you again for watching. If you missed my last video, it was a complete beginner's guide to dip. That's going to be super, super helpful. And the last thing I recommend, I do have a link in the description box for you, is to join the Revel customer community group on Facebook. It's filled with ladies who will give you a ton of tips. You can search the group for colors and ideas and tips and inspiration. So definitely join us there, and I'll see you in the next one.